Getting sexual. This actually comes from a question that was written on our Facebook group. Amazing advantage being on the TSL private Facebook group. But there's a guy talking and he's hooking up with a girl. And a big process of this fine gentleman is getting sexual, not ending up in the friend zone, being able to push intent. And when this happens, we see this cycle over and over again, where if we can't get out of that, if we can't get out to how we can get sexual, how we can pull the trigger, we're always going to get stuck in it. And we're going to look for technique. We're going to look for, what can we say better? What can we do better? We're going to look for the particulars of something and think that's the answer, but it's not. We need to get the experience of realizing that we can be sexual and it's not that big of an assault or an offense on a woman. And again, a lot of women's like pop culture stuff does not help with this of like, you need to be careful and all this sort of stuff. The reality of the matter is it's very simple to like, it's our nature. We're supposed to, we want it. We want it with our bodies. We want it with our minds. We want it with our emotions, but there's so much social construct that gets in the way. So basically he writes in, he's like, man, we took your advice on the girl last week, and it's kind of been an ongoing thing, but you'll relate with the core message of this, most definitely. And she's got some issues, but she came over to my house and we started, I told her directly, verbatim, what Steve wrote, what actually I wrote, but it was Steve and Gary who had a lot to say on this. And she said, hey, just stop. And I forget exactly what it was, but it was like, hey, look, I know you may not be looking for this or whatever, but this is what I want. And I want to be this for you and you need that. And it was really directly telling her, it's like, no, look, let's make this happen. You might be afraid of it or have some confusion, but like, let's make this happen. So be quiet and let's do this. And if you don't like it, then, what are we doing here? And she actually stopped him in that and said, hey, just stop. Let's do this. And so they watched a movie or something and, she got kind of physical with him, but no sexual acts, no kissing, no intimacy, no closeness. And see, it's an interesting thing, and a lot of guys on the board were like, hey man, this is like some friend zone material, all this sort of stuff. But again, this is a reoccurring problem that we have, not because we're a bad person or we're doing something, that is like this horrible, irreversible thing. It's because we haven't had the experience to get sexual. All right. So what we need to do and what the advice that I was giving, that Gary was giving, and some of the other guys were giving wasn't a technique of being direct, wasn't a line to say, but learning for yourself to internalize that, because that's what you're going to have to do in order to realize that this is fine and okay. Man, with this girl in particular, she's got a lot of baggage, but like you said, you were willing to entertain that journey that, she was a little bit crazy. And again, one of the things that Gary was saying is like, don't worry about that. Why? Why is that a big deal? You want to hook up with her. You want to have a sexual experience. You want to see how it goes. You're not saying you want a relationship. In fact, she says she doesn't want a relationship. And for her particularly, we don't want to look too much at her because she is exposing your problem. Fixing her or fixing the problem with her will not fix your problem. It may get you closer to it, but the problem is we got to know how to pull that trigger and get sexual. So basically, like with her, yeah, she's got some issues. Some of the guys wrote about it. She has some intimacy issues. She is using her, and don't think about this too much, but this is kind of obvious and you should see this so that you can avoid some certain things. But look, her sexual outlets are people that she's unattached to. Her emotional outlets are people that she's attached to, and she will not mix them, and she is not mixing them. Why? Because there's some sort of pain around it and some sort of shit. We all have shit. We all have baggage. You have your problems. I have my problems. She's got her problems, and we work within a language of that. It's not a big deal, but it's just there, and that's how she's working. So look, if you wanted to get sexual with her, number one, you would have to at some point, quote unquote, man up or take charge and basically say, look, and actually it would be less sane and more acting. But it would be something with this voicing of like, look, I like you. I'm going to kiss you right now. If you have a problem with that, then let's stop talking. And you walk out the door. It's not let's stop talking and let me give you a ride and let me apologize for it and here you go or whatever. And it's not actually being a dick and saying like, I'm gonna try and kiss you, and you're either gonna kiss me and it's gonna be good, and we'll see what happens, or we're not. And if she doesn't, It's not that you're intentionally trying to be a dick and say, fuck you, bitch, you cunt, whore, whatever the fuck it is. And a lot of pickup comes at that angle. But it's like, okay, cool. Then we stop. I can't do this. And look at this. Look at like the honesty in it. And we talk about this a lot with a lot of the friend zone stuff. It's basically like, look, I am speaking my truth. I don't want to lie to you anymore. So you're on your own. That sucks. Let me do this. I have to do what I do. But if you expect me to be friends with you, if you expect me to be your grief mop of whatever shit, man, I'm not doing that. So sorry we got in this position. Sorry we, invested all this time. And, that probably has to do with you and me and, whatever. I can apologize for that, but you got to go. And man, the interesting thing about this and the social phenomenon, the social dynamic would be speaking your truth in that way. But the social phenomenon that happens when you cut that, and this is why it's so popular in pickup, but they don't get this part. Otherwise, they could simplify it and actually be a really good dude doing it, not be an asshole. But when you push and you say, hey, look, do you want this or not? And you offer an easy road back. If she does have that drive, if she wants it, if she doesn't want it, it's not going to work. But if a part of her wants it, if a small part of her wants it, and then a huge part of her, like this fear, this phobia that she has of mixing her intimacy and her physicality, that might be 90% of her that's just fighting all these different ways, that may tip it. And so seriously, look, the sexual urge is pure. It doesn't hold a percentage or a fraction of a person. If it's there, it's there. And when it's out and it can express and it can connect, then the truth will come out of what she might really think. The fears of boundaries or the rules that she has, or not mixing emotion with whatever, or maybe she has boundaries about not kissing on the first date or having sex with somebody after 3 dates or some like weird rule like that. That is a construct that can only come out of like a fear or not knowing, a lack of experience. But what can override that and actually make it into its truth so that she can be her real her is the experience. And that's why I say it's like, man, if you feel go sexual, get that sexual feeling. Don't talk about it. It's like her beauty, all of her capability. And man, fucking write this down and say this to new women you meet, not necessarily to this girl, because she won't get caught up in the emotional stuff. But if you meet somebody and you're casually, talking to me, just say, man, the beauty about sex is it's a truth that can't be spoken. And this is what's happening with her. She's trying to speak her truth when there's all this fear wrapped around it and it seeps out all these holes and goes through this maze of how to get there. Guys do this with their dicks too. But man, the greatest things about her sexuality, her femininity, what makes her get aroused, what makes her feel love, what makes her carnally think of things that she would never think about in a social setting. Man, that cannot be defined in any language other than the action of sex. Sure, she can speak it when you're having sex with her. Sure, she can speak it when you're feeling her, when she is giving herself to you, you're ravaging her, and she's doing the same back to you. But if you try and articulate it when you're in your social mind, so much shit comes up into it. Look, this is what you got to do. Next time you see her, hang out with her, just act aloof, act whatever. Man, you are not her friend. Stop trying to be her friend. You're not somebody that needs to play to her to see if she runs away or not. I mean, you don't really want a relationship with her, but of course, again, that could happen once you get sexual. That shit can happen. We've all fallen into, the arms of crazy broads and been like, no, this is my place to be, where we're being like dismantled, for a 6-month ride of hell. But the thing is what you got to do is you got to put it on the line. Hang out with her, be casual, be aloof. Man, you're not trying to be her friend. You're just hanging out and killing time like, just some dude is doing. And then when you feel the time is right, basically you're alone and there's not a lot of distractions. You're in a good place where you could continue on to the full sexual act. Just say, hey, look, I know you talked about some shit, but I don't really give a shit, or, whatever. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to me. Like, I want to kiss you and I want to see what that feels like. And you say it like that. You're not, hey, I want to kiss you and I want to see. It's like, hey, I want to kiss you. I want to see what that feels like. I want to see what comes out when I do that. And then she says a bunch of shit. Stop, wait. It's like, no, okay, then why are we talking? and offer an easy road back. The easy road back would be like, after why are we talking? I would say just like this. Why are we talking? So why are we talking? Or we could try this for like 2 seconds. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What might happen if your lips touch mine and you actually feel what I feel and I feel what you feel? So let's do it, or I'll call you a cab. Come here for a second. That's how I would say it. And if you do that, you might get a no. You might get somebody turning you away. You might get somebody really pissed off, and you might get a kiss. But again, we're not trying to get a result in a day. We're not trying to get a result in some ping action. You'll get those things, but those are a byproduct of the overall result of you living a good life where you're empowered, you can speak your truth, you can show your intent and not be bound by your fears. So you can then unlock fears of, that it's like a plague in our society. Well, I don't want to be too dramatic about it. People build up all this hysteria bullshit, like the disease of whatever. But man, you can unlock, man, the fears that women have wrapped up around sex, because man, that is the saddest thing. When men and women start connecting, shit changes. When men and women force themselves to stay separate because they're afraid of what might happen, man, we live in a backwards culture where sex can only be high or low. Sex can only be we're falling in love, or it's rape culture. Man, it's so much in between. And in between is where you're going to find your life, your identity, and their identity. And again, man, that's the true power and empowerment that you're going to get from within you connecting with somebody else.